Emmanuel.
Emmanuel.
The Lord is with us right there by your side.
Emmanuel.
We give your name all the glory.
Emmanuel.
Oh, Emmanuel, Emmanuel.
Emmanuel.
Take it up, y'all. Oh,
Emmanuel.
And there we saw the giants, the sons of Anak. Those were the giants in that time in the land, which come of great of the giants, and we were in our own sights. So these men, these spies, they saw themselves in their own sight as grasshoppers. In other words, as very small people compared to those in the land. So you have to get beyond looking at things of your or in your own sight. Somebody say your own sight.
Your own sight.
If you're going to progress and if you're going to have a new perspective, you have to have a different sight of what you're looking at. Because what you're looking at certainly may be enough to place you in a position to where you're afraid to move forward. But if you look at it through the eyes of God, you will see that you and God are more than enough. Why is that? Because God is bigger than any giant that may be in your life. And if you're going to trust God, you have to understand it is not about you. It's not about what you see. But it's more so about what God has for you that you still yet cannot see. You have to learn how to tell your neighbor, trust God.
Trust God.
Because when God sends you, He has already prepared the way. And who knows what God has for us, we may not even have to spend a dime for. But if you're not willing to go out and spy out the land, then you will never get what God has for you. Tell your neighbor, you got to be willing to go. You got to have a new perspective. So you have to be willing to go and spy out the land, and even when you get to the land and you see things that seem as if you won't be able to overcome them, have the confidence that you can and you will do it with and through the Spirit and the might of God. Because here in this text we see these men, they came back and they said, well, look here, we checked out the land and we saw what was going on in there. There are people there, there are giants that are larger than us. And when we saw these giants there, even in our own sight, we saw how small we were, leading us to believe that we are not able to overtake the land. Now, you got to look at the text, because God did not tell them to go take the land. He only told them to go spy out the land. Because if God told them to go at this time to go take the land, then that would have been something different. But He only told them to do one thing. Go spy out. Go see. Go take a look at the land. And when they went and took a look at the land, the thing that kind of surprised me about this text is, when the men come back, the 8 that came back with a negative report said, we can't do this thing. God will give you what you need to take the land that He has prepared for you. But if you go on the report of what somebody else says that you can't do, then what God has for you, you just lost because you believe somebody else's report rather than believing the report of God. So tell your neighbor, you can't listen to other folk. Because they don't see what God sees. So in other words, you got to have a new perspective. When God didn't ask you to believe whether or not it's too good to be true, He just said go. He said just go and possess it. Go look at it. I'll give you the land. I'll give you what you need. All you have to do is be willing to listen to me and do what I tell you to do, though you don't understand why or you don't understand how. If you just tell somebody go, then it's yours for the taking. Oh yeah, you got to tell your neighbor, you got to have a new perspective, because you can't see things the way you used to see them. Because if you're going to be a child of God, then you have to be willing to operate by faith. faith.
Yes.
That's what faith is all about. Faith is about having a new perspective on the things in your life as to what God says you can have. The spies, they come back with a negative report saying that we can't take it. We are unable to overcome it, as he says in that verse 30. Though they have brought back evidence of what is there, and knowing that if God told them to go look at this land, it must have been for a reason. Tell your neighbor, there's a reason. When God directs you to do something, even when you don't understand why, he's telling you to do it for a reason. He didn't ask you to figure it out. Because the Bible lets us know that his ways are above our ways and his thoughts are above our thoughts. So there's no way we're going to figure out why God is telling us to do something. It is only for us to do. It is for us to know that it is God telling us to go. And they gave a bad report about what they had seen. But the thing I like about this is with Joshua and Caleb, the only 2 of the 10 that come back with a favorable report. But even before Caleb could give his report, he had to silence those who gave the evil report or the bad report. You got to understand, because people are more apt to go with a bad report. Lord have mercy. The sad thing is you have to deal with and overcome the negative report that has been given before you are able to give the positive report. That's part of the problem with politics today. There's so much mess going on. People are always putting out lies and stories about other people, about what they have done, how they have cheated, how they have stolen, and all this kind of mess, when at the same time they're doing the same thing, if not even more. But yet, in order to discredit someone else, and even to discredit you or discourage you from doing something you know that God has led you to do, then there's those folk who come with this negative or bad report. And most times the report they give, they can't substantiate it.
That's right. Amen.
But they know if they just create what is called in court a shadow of a doubt. That just that small doubt is just enough to prevent you and even others from moving forward. But tell your neighbor, you got to have a new perspective. You got to have a better insight, because when you are being led to do something and you know it's of God, you cannot allow the evil report that comes before the good report to discourage you from remembering the good report. Look at the text. All right. 29, let's see what it says. And the Amalekites dwell in the land of the south, and the Hittites and the Jebusites and the Amorites dwell in the mountains, and the Canaanites dwell by the sea and by the coast of Jordan. This is the stuff that the spies had came back and said, this is what we see. These are the things that are preventing us from being able to go in and take the land. And Caleb, somebody say steal. And Caleb stilled, in other words, quieted, look at the text, the people before Moses. In order for him to be able to give a report of encouragement, he had to overcome the negative first. So he had to still the people, quiet the people, so that what he was about to say could be heard. Because there was already enough mess being talked about of what you can't do. Tell somebody, you've been told enough what you can't do. Now it's time to hear what you can do. Oh yeah. You've been told enough already that you can't do this, that you can't do that. You'll never be this and you'll never be that. But tell your neighbor, the devil's a lie.